Most men alive today will never be remembered, not because they weren't talented, not because they weren't smart, but because they never, not once, decided to become dangerous. And I don't mean dangerous in the way the world has turned that word into something ugly. I mean dangerous in the original sense. The way a general is dangerous. The way a chess grandmaster is dangerous. The way a man who has eliminated every distraction from his life and locked his entire being onto a single target is dangerous. That kind of man doesn't need to raise his voice. He doesn't need to beg for respect. He doesn't need to compete, because in his mind, the competition already ended. He already won. What you're about to hear is not motivation. Motivation fades by Tuesday. What this is architecture. A blueprint pulled from the mind of the most ruthlessly effective political philosopher in human history, Machiavelli, and rebuilt for the man sitting where you're sitting right now, wondering why his life doesn't look like what he imagined. Stay with this, because by the time we're done, you're going to understand exactly why you've been losing, and exactly how men who refuse to lose think, move, and operate. Let's begin. Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with the discomfort of the answer. When was the last time you went an entire day completely focused on one thing that actually mattered? Not scrolling, not checking, not half watching something while half thinking about something else. One thing, full attention, all of you. Present. If you had to think about it, that's the answer. And here is the brutal truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The reason most men are average is not laziness, it's dilution. Your attention is split across 40 things. Your energy is being drained by people, platforms, and problems that have nothing to do with your mission. You are a river trying to flow in 12 directions at once, and you wonder why nothing gets built. Machiavelli watched this same thing destroy kingdoms. He watched gifted princes lose entire empires not because they lacked soldiers, but because they lacked focus. They tried to please everyone. They spent their power on 100 small things instead of one decisive move. And empire by empire, throne by throne, they fell. Here's what Machiavelli understood that most men never will. The world does not reward the man who tries the hardest. The world rewards the man who sees the clearest. Clarity is a weapon. And right now, most men are unarmed. You've been told your whole life to be well-rounded, to keep your options open, to stay flexible. And that advice, well-intentioned as it was, has made you soft. It has made you hesitant. It has spread you so thin that you've become invisible, even to yourself. The general's mindset starts with one question, and only one. What is the hill I am willing to die on? Not the hill that looks good, not the hill your parents picked, not the hill your friends are already climbing. Your hill. The one that makes you angry when you think about how far you still are from the top. The one that keeps you up, not with anxiety, but with hunger. Until you answer that question with your whole chest, you're not a general. You're a man wandering a battlefield without a map. Rule 1. Never divide your forces. Machiavelli wrote that the greatest military blunder a commander can make is to split his army before the decisive battle. You weaken every front. You win nowhere. You lose everywhere. Your life is the army. Your time, your energy, your attention, those are your forces. And right now, how many fronts are you fighting on? You're trying to build a business while scrolling social media for 2 hours a day. You're trying to get in shape while staying up until 2 a.m. You're trying to improve your relationships while being mentally absent every time you're in the room. You are dividing your forces, and you are losing on every front. The focused man looks different. He has chosen his campaign. He has pulled his forces back from everywhere else, ruthlessly, without apology, and he has stacked every resource he has onto the one thing that matters most right now. This is not a popular idea. People will call you selfish. They will call you obsessed. They will say you've changed. Good. You should change. That's the point. The version of you that was spread thin and available to everyone was the version that was going nowhere. The version of you that finally said, "Not right now, I'm in the middle of a campaign." That's the version who builds something that lasts. Divide your forces and you hand victory to your enemy. Concentrate them and you become unstoppable. Rule 2. Know the difference between battles and the war. One of the most destructive things a man can do is win battles that cost him the war. You win the argument with your business partner and lose the partnership. You prove your point to your team and lose their loyalty. You refuse to bend on a small thing and break on the thing that mattered most. Machiavelli was merciless about this. He watched leaders exhaust their political capital on minor grievances, petty vendettas, small victories that meant nothing, and then arrive at the moment that defined their reign with nothing left in the tank. The focused man, the dangerous man, asks one question before every conflict, every decision, every expenditure of energy. Does winning this move me closer to the war I am fighting, or does it just feel good right now? And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because most of the things we fight for every day are battles, small, ego-driven, emotionally satisfying in the moment, and strategically meaningless in the long run. The man who is dangerously focused has almost no ego invested in daily interactions. He is not fighting to feel right. He is not fighting to be respected in the room. He already knows what he is. The approval of the room is irrelevant. He is fighting for the war, the long campaign, the thing that will still matter in 10 years. Let the small battles go. Reserve your fire for the decisive moment. That is how generals win. Rule 3. Control your environment, or your environment controls you. Machiavelli had no illusions about human nature. He understood that even the strongest man is shaped by his environment, that virtue, discipline, and ambition all need the right conditions to survive. Put a disciplined man in a chaotic environment long enough, and you won't have a disciplined man anymore. Look at your environment right now. What is the first thing you see when you wake up? What sounds fill your home? What conversations fill your mind? What is on the walls, on the screens, in the spaces where you spend your hours? Because your environment is either building you, or it is slowly, quietly, invisibly dismantling you. The phone on your nightstand that you check before your feet hit the floor, that is not a neutral object. It is a pipeline directly into your mind, controlled by companies whose entire business model is your distraction. The conversation that drains you every time you leave, that is not just an inconvenience, that is a leak in your hull. The focused man does not trust himself to outthink his environment. He redesigns it. He engineers his days so that the path of least resistance leads toward the work, not away from it. He makes it hard to waste time and easy to build. This is not weakness. This is what generals do. They choose their terrain. They do not fight uphill when they don't have to. They position themselves so that the fight is already half won before the first move is made. Control your environment, ruthlessly, completely, without apology. Rule 4. Fear is a tool. Use it, or it uses you. Here is the rule that will make some people uncomfortable, and that's exactly how I know it's true. Machiavelli said it plainly. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And I know what you've been told. Be likable, be warm, make them love you. Leadership is about belonging. But let me tell you what nobody will say in the polished leadership seminars and the feel-good YouTube talks. The man who needs to be loved is the man who can be controlled. If I know that you need my approval, my applause, my acceptance, I own you. I don't even have to try. You will contort yourself, compromise yourself, shrink yourself to keep my affection, and you will call that loyalty. Machiavelli called it a cage. The man who has released the need to be liked, who has replaced it with a quiet, internal standard that he holds himself to regardless of who is watching, that man cannot be manipulated. He cannot be leveraged. He cannot be bought with validation. Now, and this matters, this does not mean becoming cruel. It does not mean being cold to the people you love. It means drawing the line between your need for external approval and your internal code. Fear, in the Machiavellian sense, means that people understand your standards are real, that when you say something you mean it, that there are consequences to betrayal, that your word is not soft. A man who cannot be pushed around is a man who will not be pushed around, and the world will sense that before you even open your mouth. Stop needing them to like you. Start needing yourself to respect you. Rule 5. The man who waits for perfect conditions dies waiting. Machiavelli warned against the man who prepares endlessly and acts never. The prince who reads every book on war but refuses to engage until conditions are perfect will find that the throne has been taken by a man who read half the books and moved. This will offend some of you, and I mean it too. You are not waiting for the right time. You are afraid.
And the story you are telling yourself about timing, about resources, about being ready is the most expensive lie you have ever believed. I'm not saying that carelessly. I know how real the fear feels. I know how convincing the reasons sound when you're the one making them. I know that it genuinely feels like wisdom, like patience, when really it is paralysis wearing patience's clothing. The moment you are waiting for does not exist. There will always be one more thing to figure out, one more variable to resolve, one more reason to hold off. That is the nature of reality, messy, incomplete, permanently in motion. The general does not wait for the fog to clear before he moves. He moves through the fog. His clarity comes not from perfect information. It comes from knowing his objective so completely that uncertainty becomes irrelevant. What is your objective? Do you know it so clearly that uncertainty becomes noise? If not, that's the work. Not more research, not more planning. Clarity, decision, movement. Imperfect action today, every single time, over perfect inaction, forever. Rule 6. Build your inner council and guard the gates. Machiavelli dedicated an entire chapter of The Prince to advisors, and his position was stark. The quality of your inner circle is a direct reflection of the quality of your mind. Surround yourself with flatterers, and you will be blind. Surround yourself with honest men, and you will see clearly. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Not who you wish, who actually gets your hours, your attention, your energy. Do they challenge you? Do they hold themselves to a standard that makes you better by comparison? Do they tell you the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable? Or do they make you feel good about standing still? Because here is the thing about the men around you who celebrate your mediocrity. They are not your friends. They are comfortable with where you are because where you are validates where they are. Your progress is an accusation. Your ambition makes them uncomfortable. And unconsciously, not always maliciously, they will find ways to slow you down. The focused man does not hate these people. He understands them, but he guards his time and his mind like the gates of a city. Not everyone gets access. Not every voice gets a vote. Build your council with people who are further along the road than you, people who are honest, people who have paid a price for something real, and listen to them, especially when they tell you things you don't want to hear. Machiavelli said a prince should ask questions freely and receive honest answers without anger. This is harder than it sounds, but the man who can hear hard truths without flinching is the man who actually improves. Rule 7. Protect your energy like it is your most valuable territory. In warfare, supply lines determine the outcome of campaigns more than any single battle. An army that runs out of food, ammunition, and morale, no matter how skilled, does not win. You can have the most brilliant general in the world. If his men are starving, they lose. Your energy is your supply line, and most men are bleeding out. Chronic sleep deprivation, not just tiredness, I mean the normalized 4 to 5 hours that half the men watching this have accepted as just how life is burning your supply line. You are running campaigns on empty. Every day you are asking your mind to perform at the highest level while giving it the least possible recovery. The food you eat, the movement you give your body, the stillness you do or do not create in your day. These are not wellness topics. They are strategic decisions. They determine the quality of every thought you have, every decision you make, every hour you give to your mission. Machiavelli's prince did not neglect his physical preparation. He hunted, not for sport, but because the physical discipline of the hunt trained his mind for the decisions of governance. He understood that the body and the mission are not separate. You are not too busy to sleep. You are too disorganized to sleep. You are not too busy to eat well, to move, to create silence. You have chosen, unconsciously, to let those things go, and you are paying the price every single day in cognitive fog, in emotional volatility, in the grinding gray sense that something important is slipping away. Guard your energy. It is the territory from which everything else is built. Rule 8. The obsession is not the problem. The lack of direction is. Society will tell you that obsession is unhealthy, that balance is the goal, that you need to tend to all parts of yourself equally and make sure nobody feels neglected, and take breaks and practice self-care and. The men who changed history were not balanced. They were obsessed, violently, completely, single-mindedly obsessed with one thing, and everything else orbited that thing or got cut loose.
Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Frederick the Great, Napoleon, who, whatever else you think of him, rebuilt an entire civilization's legal structure while simultaneously running one of the most aggressive military campaigns in European history. These men were not balanced. They were directed, and that is the key word, directed. The obsession without direction is addiction.
spinning energy that destroys the man who carries it. The obsession with direction is momentum, the force that builds empires. Your task is not to moderate the fire inside you. Your task is to aim it. When you find the thing that your obsession belongs to, the mission that matches the intensity you carry, you stop feeling broken. You stop apologizing for how seriously you take things. You stop wondering why you don't fit. Because the man who has found his direction, the man whose obsession and mission are perfectly aligned, he is not overwhelming. He is not too much. He is exactly what he was always supposed to be. I want to speak to you directly for a moment. Not as a narrator, not as someone reciting Machiavelli from a distance. I want to speak to the man you know you could be, but haven't fully let yourself become yet. You have felt it. I know you have. That pull, that deep, wordless sense that there is a version of your life, a version of you that is bigger, sharper, more alive than the version you've been living. You've caught glimpses of it in the moments when everything clicks, when you're in the work and the world falls away, when you finish something and feel not just good, but right, like you are exactly where you are supposed to be. That feeling is not a fantasy. It is information. It is your architecture showing through. It is the version of you that already exists in potential, knocking on the door of the version of you that keeps choosing comfort over commitment. And here is what I need you to understand, really understand, not just process intellectually. Every day you wait, that gap gets harder to close. Not because you become less capable, but because the habits of distraction, of half-effort, of almost, those habits compound. They become identity. They become the story you tell yourself about who you are. And one day, and this is the truth that breaks the men who finally face it, one day you will sit somewhere and realize that the window didn't close dramatically. There was no catastrophic moment. It just quietly closed. While you were distracted, while you were comfortable, while you were waiting. Don't let that be your story. You are not built for average. You know that. You have always known that. The fact that you are still here is itself a sign. Most men quit the video that challenges them. You stayed because part of you knows this is the conversation you needed to have. Machiavelli's rules are not complicated. They never were. Focus. Protect your energy. Choose your battles. Command your environment. Know your mission. Build with ruthless intention. The question was never whether you understood them. The question is whether you are willing to live them. This is the moment. Not tomorrow. Not after the next thing settles. Now. Pick the hill. Concentrate your forces. Cut what drains you without apology. Build your environment like your mission depends on it, because it does. Stop performing for audiences that don't matter. Protect your energy like the territory it is, and begin. Not the perfect version of beginning. Not the ready version of beginning. The actual, imperfect, uncomfortable, this is who I am choosing to become version. Machiavelli did not write The Prince for kings. He wrote it for a young man, Lorenzo de' Medici, who had inherited power but had not yet decided to deserve it. A man who had everything except the one thing that would make everything mean something, a decision. That is what stands between where you are and where you are going. Not resources, not luck, not talent, a decision. One decision, made completely, with no door left open for retreat. The generals who changed history did not win because they had the most men or the best weapons. They won because they decided, before the battle started, that losing was not a possibility they were willing to carry. Decide that today. Become dangerously focused. The battlefield is yours. If this hit something in you, if even one of these rules stopped you and made you think about your life differently, then you already know this isn't where you stop. The man who is building himself doesn't do it in one video. He builds a practice. He returns to the sharpening stone. Regularly. Deliberately. This channel is that stone. Every week, new frameworks, new strategies, new conversations between the life you have and the life you are capable of. Not hype. Not empty motivation. Real ideas from real thinkers, built for men who refuse to lose.
If that's you, and if you're still here, it is. Hit subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell, because the next video you miss might be the one that changes everything. See you in the next one. Keep building.